So design rules, we know, but with the rules there are also a lot of conventions that kind of got established over time. But what's really frustrating are like error messages like that. I mean, this is a joke, of course. There should be a yes instead, but it happens all the time. This used to be a thing that you had a home button to go back into the front page of your web page. People come to your website from different places through a Google search or from other links. It doesn't mean that your home page is actually still the home. You don't need a home button because our logo or name on the top left or center would usually be the same as going back to that home button, like the index page of a web page. So we don't need that icon anymore. It outdates your website if you have that. And the navigation is 99% of the time on the top. And we just got so used to it. It wouldn't be on the bottom because it's not like a static TV. We can scroll things, so it would get out of the way unless it's a fixed element. Breadcrumb you talked about before is a good way to find your way if you have a really deep website, but they're visually not that attractive to look at. So it may only make sense if you really have a lot of information. So this is the internet. What's really important about it, what makes it different from a book, is the interactivity. So links are really important. A link in the CSS, you can see in this gray box here, is programmed with the letter A. Everything that's A colon something is related to a link. You actually don't need the colon link anymore. You just say A and style that. That would style all the links on your page. You can have a visited state and a hover state, which means the rollover when you roll over it, giving you the feedback that this is actually an interactive element, so that's important. And then an active state when you actually click on the button, because on the phone you don't have a hover, so because you can't really roll over things. And then an active would give you a feedback that you activated this button, because there might be a loading phase, and if you keep pressing it and nothing happens, so you have to give this kind of state of an active. Google on the top and the bottom left here, you see they don't underline the links anymore. After a while they stopped doing it because it made the page look really busy if everything was underlined. But initially hyperlinks were underlined and were blue. That was the default state. And talked about the carousels before. It's a good way to put a lot of information in a stack, but it also hides things. But here are some do's and don'ts of the things you want to avoid in a carousel. So you don't want to make it autoplay, because people might be just looking at your page and all of a sudden something moves away, they feel they got lost. And so you have to keep that information super simple and really quick. Like, we don't pay attention on the web. Good to have control bars in case you want to go back. H1, which is the main headline of a page, is what Google looks for. If you put several H1s, let's say in all of your slides, and you style them, Google won't recognize that as a second title of your page. It's only taking the first one. So it's good practice to make them at least H2s or further down. You want to make it touch-friendly because most people use it on the web now. Use the web on the phone now. It's frustrating to be in an error message. It just says here, a catastrophic failure. Sounds bad. So very frustrating. You can't get out of it. You can't fix it. It's a good idea at this point to cheer people up and make them feel like they're not completely lost. So this search is also, conventionally it's on the top right. That's where people, according to this graph, would expect it to find. It's because we read from top to bottom and from left to right. So that corner is kind of in the back of our heads where we keep our logins and search and like sort of secondary information. And you can, in those search buttons, search fields, you even might want to give a suggestion of what people are actually looking for, because they might not really know what questions to ask. So at IMDb, a popular movie platform here, you can find movies, shows, and they list all the things that you can actually do in the search bar, and it's a very wide search bar. Now, it is also really important. People forget to put the actual call to action, the CTA to press it, which would need to be a button that at least has the icon of the magnifying glass, which is sort of the convention by now that we know this means search. So when you're going from one page to the next page, and the button jumps around to a different place, it calls attention to itself because we expect it to stay at the same place. I mentioned this, we read from left to right, but it's also important if you animate text onto the screen that you're going from the right to left, because this way you can start reading from that left that first appears to the right. Or if you want to zoom it up, you can only go from the bottom because we read the first lines first. If you have a text that comes down from the top, it can only be one line because otherwise you would have to read the second line before the first line, right? The cancel button would always be moved out of the way so that people don't press it by default. We're going to hit the bottom right button to move to the next page. So if you put the cancel button there, people might accidentally press it because they're used to that. The delete button especially, make that really far to the left so that you don't actually accidentally delete things. A new thing that's kind of cool now, dark mode. People are annoyed by very bright screens, makes your eyes tired. I don't know if dark mode is all that much better, but it has this kind of like gaming feel to it, so people really love it, and you should try it out. Thank you.